Well, hello there. Welcome to the Paranormal Highway channel. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. You know, this channel represents trying to find the truth to questions that you might have. And everybody's questions are different. And one of the reasons why I got into this is I love the study of paranormal UFOs and the Bigfoot. But there's always one question, like for me, for myself, and everybody has different levels of what's important to them as a question. One of the main questions I always had was, is there life after death? For me, that's like the most ultimate question you can ask, right? Is there life after death? Some people believe that when we die, our energy goes to heaven. Some people believe that when we die, our energy is reincarnated into another body. So there's different stories of what happens to us when we die. Some people believe that when you die, it's blank. It's like unplug the computer, blackout. Nothing happens. So, you know, when I investigate ghosts and all that, a ghost or a spirit, if they exist, if you could prove that they exist for yourself, then you kind of know right there. Your energy does go somewhere. And if you deal with an intelligent haunting or a ghost, you know there's something more than what your energy goes when you die. But what about all the near-death experience? If you didn't know, as a report, over 9 million people in a year experience something on a near-death experience. And that's where technically somebody actually died. I mean, they're technically considered dead, and they see something, and with the magic of the holy God himself, doctors, medical devices, somehow they bring you back, and when they come back, they saw something, they smelled something, they saw themselves rise from the body. And that myself is another way into that ultimate question. Is there something there? Now, some people might say, well, Eric, it's a chemical in the brain. It says, listen, science cannot explain everything. So the guest I have coming on today, his name is Anthony. He is a YouTube channel called Unidentified S4, who has had a near-death experience. And it's one of the most amazing near-death experience stories I have ever heard. So I want to dedicate this show to you guys to hear his story, just coming out from him. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to ask Anthony to come up. I'm going to go away, and he's going to explain on what happened to him. And then after he tells us his story, I'm going to come up for a conclusion, might ask a few questions. And then remember, the number one thing I ask from all of you is just have an open mind. Just have an open mind. Just listen. Because one thing you'll learn when you start listening to people's stories is you might learn similar stories to other people. There's so many clues you could take from this. Will this give me the exact answer that I'm looking for? Maybe not. But it might get me one step closer to finding out that answer for myself. Is there life after death? Right before Anthony comes up and tells us his story, Anthony created a reenactment of his incident. So you're about to see on what his memory an image of this video, what he went through, just to kind of give you a taste of what he's talking about. So please get ready, watch the video, and I can't wait to hear Anthony's story about this video and what he's been through.
Hey, Eric, thanks for having me, my friend. Good to see you.
So, Anthony, you have had a major death experience on, I think, what I've heard from the past, and I'm excited for you to tell us this story. You had an accident on your motorcycle. Can you tell us, like, like from the beginning? And I just want to make sure when you're driving on the motorcycle, before we start, you were under no influence. You had no alcohol, no nothing. You were just your normal self, normal day, and there's no chemicals or anything that can cause you to have an accident.
No, I was 19 years old, Eric.
Okay.
My cousin Frank and I, we were saving up our money to buy a motorcycle. Now, at 19 years old, we couldn't afford one each, so we decided to pool our money together and purchase one to share. So we purchased a 1999 ZX9 Ninja Kawasaki. And we saved up for a couple months for this thing. And when we finally got it, and I finally got to sit on the bike, I was so short that I was able to get one foot tippy-toed on the floor and the other one like just barely hovered. So the bike was always wobbling with me trying to, stay balanced on it. And I remember my cousin Frank saying, "Oh, we got to lower the suspension so you can ride this thing safely." And I was like, don't worry. I've been riding dirt bikes my whole life. I got this. So I actually took off on the bike away from him to show him that I got this and everything is okay. And once he's seen I can ride the bike, he's like, "All right, you're good. We'll just leave it as is." And I was driving all around that night. I was real happy we had the bike. We were going back and forth, taking turns and everything. And then later that night, the bike was going to stay by me because I had a garage in my house and Frank didn't. So I decided, all right, you know what? Before I put this bike away, I'm going to go for one more cruise. So I cruise around the whole neighborhood. I hit like the main highway. And on my return, I'm coming back down a one-way street by my house. Here in Staten Island, I lived on Quintard Street. And Quintard is a one-way going down all the way to the beach. It's a tight lane. So on the right side of the road is the woods, where we would dirt bike ride. And to the left side of the road is just all homes. So as I'm coming down the road, there's kids playing hockey. In the middle of the street, they got a hockey net set up, and they're shooting, slapping pucks back and forth into the net. And somebody just must have moved a couple blocks down because a Ryder moving truck was coming the wrong way down the one-way street. So I'm driving up the one-way street the way he's supposed to go, and he's coming down. And as I come around the turn, I see the truck and I see the kids playing hockey in the street, and it was either I jam on the brakes doing 35 miles an hour and slam into these kids playing hockey, or I try to go in between the net and the truck. So I tried to wiggle my way in between, and when I did that around the turn, wiggle my way in between, that truck nailed me head on. And it hit me head on. I remember the front handlebars just twisting, and I flew off the bike and I landed in the woods. And I remember seeing, it was a whole bunch of trees and weeds. And I know now from people that were behind me in cars that I smacked myself, my body smacked into a tree. I had thought that I had gotten up and I thought I was looking around for my motorcycle. But the strangest thing was all the houses disappeared. Kind of looked like I went into a painting, is the only way I could describe it. The sky was a beautiful color, pink and orange and blue, and all the weeds and grass was all waist high, all the same color green, just absolutely beautiful. No sun, but it was just like everything was beautifully lit, like a beautiful painting. And I remember walking in these weeds, and I'm moving the weeds around, and I'm looking for my motorcycle, and out to the distance, I start noticing a very blurry figure walking towards me. And I thought I had a concussion, so I started asking that figure for help. And I remember yelling, "I had a motorcycle accident, can you help me find my bike?" And the figure is slowly walking its way towards me, closer and closer and closer. And when it finally got maybe 12, 15 feet in front of me, I noticed it was a man with black curly hair, mustache, good looking guy. And I said, "Hey man, I had a motorcycle accident, can you please help me? The bike flew somewhere. My dad's gonna kill me. I just bought this bike. It's in here somewhere. I gotta drag it out." And no answer from this person. He started slowly approaching me closer and closer until he was right in front of me. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Do you want to go home?" And I said, "Yeah, man, I want to go home. We got to find my motorcycle. Please, man, can you help me out?" And I'm looking through the weeds and looking all over the place. "Come on, man, please help me out. I really got to find the bike. I'm getting nervous, I'm scared." He said it again to me, "Do you want to go home?" And I said, "Man, I told you I got to find the motorcycle. Please, you got to help me find the bike, man, please." Third time, "Do you want to go home?" And I really got aggravated. I says, "Listen, man, got to find this motorcycle. My dad's going to kill me. I just bought it." And when I got the words "I bought it" out, he took his hand and he put it towards my chest, and his hand went right through my chest. And when that happened, I woke up in the ambulance being defibrillated. After they defibrillated me, I remember coming to, and they were like, "Don't talk, you bit your tongue off. Don't talk, Anthony, everything's all right. You had an accident, you're in the ambulance, you're going to be all right." And then I remember everything going black again. And everything went black again, and I was back in that spot where I was last time. But this time, nobody was there, and I was just hovering. My body was floating over the grass this time. So I was basically just floating, looking down at all the woods. And I remember I'm just floating and floating and floating and floating. And now I'm over a dirt road, and I'm looking down at everything, and I'm like, it was so surreal to me. And then boom, I wake up in the ambulance again. And at that time, I got hit, defibrillated for the second time, woke up. At that point, we were at the hospital, everybody rushing me in and getting me in as fast as possible, and, x-rays, this, that, big tourniquet holding my tongue together. I had to get like 400, I think it was 436 or 38 oral sutures to hold my tongue together. I had knocked out teeth. I had whole side of my face was road rash. This whole side of my body was road rash, burned, like I got hit with a cheese grater, basically. And I spent about 2.5 months in the hospital, basically learning how to walk, learning how to talk, just becoming a regular person again, basically. And I would have a notepad with me, and my mom would ask me questions, and I would write everything down in the notepad, because I couldn't talk, because my tongue, it was swollen out of my face. I look up somebody that bit their tongue off in an accident, and you'll see how gigantic it gets when it's healing. Anyway, my mom would ask me, "How you feeling?" I would have to write down what I could on the paper. She'd be feeding me ice chips and this. But when I started to learn how to talk again, was when I got home. And I remember telling my mom, who was the man that was helping me look for the motorcycle? And she had asked, "What are you talking about?" And I said, when I flew off the bike and I woke up in the woods, some guy was there, and I would ask him to help me, find the bike. And he just wouldn't do anything. He just kept asking me if I wanted to go home. And she told me, "You didn't land in the woods. When you got hit, you landed right in the street. And my friend Phil was behind me in the car." She's like, "That's the only person that dialed 911, Phil, that was behind you. And thank God he was behind you." And I said, No, I landed in the woods. That, the bike, me, we all flew yards into the woods, She said, "That didn't happen. Your handlebars twisted around the frame of the bike, bent. The bike basically dropped right in the street." She's like, "The whole accident was right in the street." And this was only 2.5 blocks away from my house. So my parents and everybody were there on scene instantly, they said. My mom said she ran from the house up to the scene of the accident. But anyway, I kept asking my mom who this guy was, and she kept asking me to, describe him. So I kept saying that, he had black curly hair, he had a mustache. And I said, "I can't pin it. I know the guy from somewhere. I can't pin, where I know him from, but I know him from somewhere." So my mom goes, you were out. Your heart stopped twice." She goes, maybe you've seen a relative or something like that. So she had this suitcase growing up with all pictures from her life in this briefcase. She opens up the briefcase. She starts showing me all these pictures of people. "Does this guy look familiar? This guy?" Nah, none of these people look familiar. Finally, she pulls out a photograph, an old Polaroid photograph, right? And these two pictures are stuck together just like this. One stuck to the other one like that. And I'm looking, I'm like, "That's not the guy." And then I peel the second picture off. And I said, "Holy shit, that's the guy." And I keep the picture here on my desk. So that's me as a baby, my mom, my Aunt Dolores, and my godfather, Michael. He died in a tow truck accident on Staten Island when I was 9 months old. And that right there is the man that I seen when I crossed over. He was the man that kept asking me if I wanted to go home. And I believe he was my guardian angel. I believe that I crossed over. Didn't see God, didn't see angels, anything like that. I only seen him. And I believe he's my guardian angel, and he's the whole reason why I had the opportunity to come back. I strongly believe with every fiber in my being now that when your heart stops and your life ceases on this plane, you end up in another realm. Now, I've been investigating this for years along with the UFO subject, but when it comes to near-death experiences, even doctors today are starting to believe that when you die, your soul goes somewhere. Your energy never dies. So scientists are starting to believe this now, and I've always believed that, but I had the opportunity to physically witness this and see it with my own two eyes. And I could tell you that after that experience happened, I no longer live in a state of fear. You know, what's going to happen when I die? Where am I going to go? You know, is there a heaven? Is there a hell? When you die, if you lived a good life and you were a good person, you're going to cross over and you're going to go to a plane that's full of peace, love, and light. Now, I can't speak on what's going to happen if you're an evil person, but I choose to believe that if you repent for your sins at a time when you're getting ready to pass on and you're truly sorry for all your wrongdoings, I believe you'll end up in a piece of love and light. But I have run into stories where people have ended up in a dark pit and hearing people scream and fire and brimstone and all that stuff, because I've spoken to many people about this situation. Now, it's one of the most fascinating topics, NDEs, near-death experiences, and I've spoken to doctors, lawyers, cops, firemen, you know, janitors, you name it. A lot of people. There's actually support groups for this now. You just can go sit, and I've been to them before in meetings and have, you know, had these discussions to try and find out more. But you definitely 100% go somewhere when you die. Fact.
I want to ask you a couple questions real quick within your story, and we'll have a conclusion. What's interesting about your story is I've heard a lot of people's near-death experience stories, and they always bring up seeing their father, their grandpa, somebody more direct in a way, but they had images of that person growing up. What's interesting about yours is technically the person you saw died when you were 9 months old, so you had no visual of this person growing up, just in a picture. And what's strange is, what are the chances of you finding that picture of them stuck behind another picture? It's almost like you had to work for it. You had to earn to know who that person is. And I'm not saying that's a phenomenon or that's a paranormal thing, but it is very interesting.
Together,
picture.
You can see. I had to tear the picture off. And when it was a Polaroid, so when I tore the picture off, just the color portion of it came off, and it stuck to a clear piece of tape, so I can say, because that's the only picture I have of him.
And it's interesting that he was your godfather, so there was like a main reason for an uncle that wasn't your grandpa or great grandpa. It was like somebody that
it gets even more crazy. You know, he couldn't have kids. I come to find out
you were his kid.
He couldn't have kids, and my parents always tell me that when I was born, you know, he fell in love with me. You know, it was like, you know, him, my father, and me. We went everywhere together. You know, my dad would take me everywhere, and I was like their little sidekick when I was a newborn baby and stuff. So I looked at it like maybe to him, like he looked at me like a son, I would say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the person that came to me.
Well, from experience, you know, my wife made her sister and her husband, my best friend I grew up with, as godparents. And there is a certain thing you take on as being godparents, you know, like we're godparents of their kids. So in a lot of ways, they're your kids. And I can see where life after death, you're still watching over. You know,
he died in a very tragic way. He worked for North Shore Collision, which was I keep his keys with me for good luck. But he worked for North Shore Collision tow truck company on Staten Island. And he was coming down Snake Hill, and his tow truck hit the wall and exploded. And he burned to death in his car.
The same way.
He had a wall in an accident. His truck hit the wall and it exploded. He burned to death. May he rest in peace. And he had a tragic demise to his death. And I had an accident, and he came for me. So I feel that because he was my godfather and he loved me and we were connected, we also had a similar type of vehicle accident, and he came to be my guardian. I really strongly believe that, Eric.
On the second thing I noticed within your story, yeah, I don't hear this too much with other stories, is give you a choice.
Do I want to go home?
Do you want to go home? I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, but I haven't really heard that part of everybody's story that you actually had a choice. Do you want to go home, or you want to, come up with us?
And he asked me 3 times: Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Trinity.
Now, why is that important? Someone might be asking, so Eric,
in the Catholic religion, you got the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, the Trinity, 3. And he asked me 3 times.
But what else is important about that is if you said, I want to go with you, that means you're going somewhere.
I thought about that a lot, Eric.
What I mean, it means there is something to take you to, because if there was nothing for him to take you to, I don't think he would ask you that question. And it has to be a lovable place, because to have the option to come back to life, because I don't think your godfather will take you somewhere that's not good,
No.
give you a choice.
No.
So it kind of tells you that it's like hope in a weird way, in a bad tragedy, but in a weird way, there's hope that he would have taken you to a lovely place if you would have chosen that path.
I believe that. I really believe that with every fiber of my being, because the place where I was absolutely beautiful. And I actually have artist depictions that I'm going to share with you, so you can show everyone how beautiful the location looked. I've found artwork that resembles the location of how it looked to me where I was. And it was full of peace, love, happiness. I didn't have one feeling of dread. And I didn't feel any pain from the accident. I didn't feel anything. I didn't see any blood or nothing. I didn't even have my helmet on when I was there. I was just there, and everything was fine. And he appeared, and he was clean cut and manicured and looked beautiful. And it definitely wasn't hell or purgatory or anything like that. It was just that in between type realm, before you go up or before you go down, like that in between. That's where I think I was.
And I have 2 more questions. And this next question, if I heard you right, you technically died twice, hitting the truck and then in the ambulance itself.
I don't know exactly when my heart stopped when I hit the truck, like at what point, but I know I coded first, was defibrillated in the ambulance, got up, and then coded again, because I lost a lot of blood. I mean, I had to have transfusions and everything. I lost a lot of blood. And then I coded the second time, and I don't know how long I was out for that. And then I woke up again. But each time, I remember being on that side, it felt like I was there for hours. But theoretically, it was only minutes, because from the scene of the accident to the hospital was like a 4-minute and change ride, if that. So it couldn't have been no more than 4 minutes, 5. We'll call it, you know what? Let's be theoretical. Let's call it 10. Ambulance gets on the scene, assesses the situation, does what they got to do. You call that 5 minutes, and then another 4 minutes to travel lights and sirens to the hospital. So we'll call it 9-10 minutes tops. So
then the last question is: since that accident, you got yourself better, you healed. But do you still feel anything different because of the accident? Do you feel more love or something? Was there something different that changed before and after?
Well, I mean, nothing dramatic, but what has changed is the way I look at life. We're all here for a purpose, and we should all love and respect each other. There's too much hurt, pain, animosity, racism, religion bashing, name calling, disability bashing. All that stuff should really stop, because when it all ends, 1 or 2 things are going to happen. Either you're going to go to a place where there's love and light and happiness, or you're going to end up somewhere where it's dark and miserable for the rest of your life. And all I know is, since that happened, I know for a fact that you're gonna go somewhere. I'm gonna go somewhere full of love, light, and happiness, and I'm gonna live my life to the best of my ability and treat everybody equally, because I don't want to jeopardize that chance of ending up somewhere else. You know.
There was a bonus question, but technically you already answered it, because the bonus question was, do you believe something happens to us after we die, after your whole experience? And what
Oh,
I'm hearing you
absolutely.
is absolutely.
Without a doubt. Now, not in your physical form, but your form of energy, your soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, energy, soul, spirit, whatever. That transfers over to another plane. So your existence here in a physical form will end, but your energy will move forward on another plane. Life doesn't end here. This isn't it. This is maybe just a sample of another realm, so to speak. So and then who knows what happens over there? Maybe from there at some point it ceases on that end and you end up somewhere else. I don't know, but your energy never dies.
And I do want to say, I want to thank you for coming to do this kind of a show. And
Thank
I know
you.
it's not easy to talk about sometimes with these experiences, because I could see that no matter what, you're always going to not second guess yourself, but you're always going to think about that incident. You know, what could have, why, you know, what does it mean? You know, you're always going to have that meaning to life. You know,
Right.
you're always going to be searching, because you know now. See, there's a difference of like me searching for something. When you had that experience, you are truly going to search until you find the 100% proof of the answer you're looking for, because you experience it.
Live your life to the best of your ability, Eric. You know, be a good person. Sometimes it's hard, but good always overcomes evil. It takes more energy to be a hateful, hurtful person than to be a kind, loving, caring person. You know, it takes less energy to put on a smile than it does to put on a frown. So just try to be the best version of you that you can be for the rest of your life. And I assure you, when your time comes, you're going to end up somewhere beautiful. I promise you that.
I appreciate you coming on here very much. And guys, I'll say one last thing. I want to thank Anthony for coming up here. His story is one of the most amazing stories, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. When he speaks about, you know, biting his tongue off, the courage he had to take to relearn to walk again, to talk again. And if you listen to him speak, you would never know that he bit his own tongue off. I mean, it's amazing that his drive to find the truth out there. And that's all we're doing here, people, is we're all trying to find the truth. We know we're not going to get it from CNN or Fox News or the big corporation networks. The truth comes from people like Anthony himself that's coming out. 9 million people report this in a year. Now, that's just the people who report it. Imagine if everybody reported on the incidents that has happened. That's just not, you know, you call. I mean, I don't even know how these things get recorded in the first place. How do they exactly know it was 9 million people? My guess is over 20, 30 million people a year has experiences. Are they all just chemicals in the brain? Is it? Possibly? Maybe? You know, there's things that scientists can't explain. We need science in our life, but there's some things in life that science can't explain. And near-death experience is one of those things. So I hope you enjoyed this segment. And please leave a comment. Leave a comment. Tell us, what do you think of Anthony's story? You know, support. Beyond that, I want to thank every single buddy for watching this. I want to thank Anthony again, because I don't want anybody to have a near-death experience like that, where to have an experience like that, you had to technically die. You think about that. You had to technically die to have that experience. And I don't want anybody to be that close, because that meant they were close to death. But if you have a story, please tell it, because it just encourages, not just the story himself, the story about him learning to walk again, learning to talk again. I mean, that's just, to me, that's just amazing. That's just amazing. And guys, don't forget to subscribe and go to Identify S First channel. His link is in the description. Please go to his channel. And if this is the first time you're going to his channel, let him know you went to his channel because of this video. Let him know, because it will tell Anthony that people want to hear your story. People want to see it. because it makes you feel good at the end of the day on what the struggles he went through. Now I can't, there's no words for it. I'm just amazed. So guys, have a nice day. And like he said, be kind to one another. Love your neighbor. There's no reason to have hate. We're on this planet for a short time. Don't you want to live the best you can? Good things will happen to you when you show people respect. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Think about that way. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And if you do, I promise you, at the end, good things will happen to you. Good things in life or after death. I'll see you next time on the Paranormal Highway.